Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
And welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have joining us, I think, from their home in New York. I realized I didn't ask that before we came on. The Kennedys.
The great state of New York. Yay.
Hey.
I can hear you.
Well, folks are very excited today. Folks joining the party nice and early today. And we have folks tuned in from all over the place, and including our friend and regular Back Catalog Listening Party attendee, Joe from South Minneapolis.
Hey, Joe.
Joe.
We have Alan from Texas in between cloudbursts. It's been all clouds here in Minneapolis, I will say that. Kicking off happy hour with a rich Belgian-style IPA on this dreary Minnesota day. It is very dreary out there,
Yes.
folks.
Here too, yeah.
We
Oh,
really
yeah.
need this pick-me-up today.
We sure do.
Lynn says hi from Greenville, South Carolina, regular on the Back Catalog, and she says she saw you a bunch of years ago. Stephen says greetings from Portlandia.
Yeah.
Apparently, Portland is where you have to be today to get the beautiful weather. So, well, it will be
course.
sunny. It will be sunny here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. If you're new to this show, this is the show where we invite some of our favorite artists on to revisit old records, one of their old records, and talk about the songs, answer your questions live. It's also for us our weekly musical happy hour. So if you have a beverage that you're enjoying or a snack, feel free to throw it in the comments. Let us know what you're having. I wish you could send it via comments. But today I'm enjoying, because it is dreary in Minnesota, it's just still feels like winter. So doing a Bell's Porter because
Ooh,
still
nice.
feeling the winter vibes. I was hoping I'd be on to margaritas, but I'm not feeling the vibes yet.
Not
Maybe
quite
later.
yet.
We'll get you going.
Exactly. Tony, what are you enjoying on your Friday?
I also decided to go kind of dark. This is a great brewery out of Colorado.
Nice.
Called Ihrig, and this is Ellie's Brown Ale. Perfect
Nice.
for a day like today.
Well,
Kennedy.
I'm drinking my Cup o' Joe.
Nice.
There it is.
Oh, I love that.
Because we're Kennedys, so no
And
mystery.
I'm drinking coffee out of my Birds
Oh, nice.
travel
Very
mug.
nice. Nice.
speak- Speaking
Sneak
of-
you in right there.
Speaking of, we have to say hello to Ricky 12 String. He watches from Sweden.
What?
Yeah, and he's got his own radio show in Sweden. He plays a lot of Americana music. He's here. And also Ilsa and Martin from the Midlands of, almost knocked my...
In
In
England.
England.
Wow. So it's
Yeah.
late there. So thank you, folks.
Yeah, I
for
know.
tuning
It's
Yeah.
like 10 o'clock over there. So they're diehards.
in. Awesome.
Nice.
We
Nice.
love.
Welcome to everybody.
Great people.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you all here and to participate in the party and enjoy this music together. And I am so excited about the record we're going to revisit today. And before we let people know about that and start listening to the tunes, for folks who, I know that you have a lot of your regular fans are on here, but there might be some people who are less familiar with your music. So Pete and Maura, if you one of you wants to sort of give the 2-minute origin story about how you met and started making music together, and maybe what led to this record in particular.
Well, in 1991, I had spent the summer touring with Mary Chapin Carpenter, a great songwriter. And then I switched over. In the fall, we played Austin City Limits along with Nancy Griffith. And my gig with Mary Chapin was just ending, and Nancy needed a lead guitar player. So I switched over and became the guitar player in the Blue Moon Orchestra. And on my way out to play the Telluride Festival in June of 92, is that
Yep.
right? I played a gig down at the Continental Club in Austin, and Maura and I met there. And the very next day, she had a great band called the Delta Rays in Austin. The very next day, a bunch of songwriters were getting together playing songs, and we just kind of naturally harmonized together, and it sounded great. And I had to leave and continue on to play the Telluride Festival with Nancy. And I called Maura from way up in Telluride. I was 1,000 miles away from Austin. And if you remember books, those paper things with cardboard, there used to be these books called atlases that had a bunch of maps in them. And they were like the paper GPS, I guess. And so we were talking on the phone from 1,000 miles apart, and we each had a Rand McNally. And we computed the equidistant point between Telluride and Austin because we really wanted to get back together. And it turned out to be Lubbock, Texas. And if you're a songwriter, you know that Joe Ely and Butch Hancock, all these great songwriters, but especially the the granddaddy of them all, Buddy Holly, came from Lubbock. And Buddy Holly's buried there. So we got this idea that we would each drive 500 miles, meet through the mountains and more through the desert in West Texas. And we'd meet at Buddy Holly's grave. And there was no cell phone, so you didn't really know the other person was doing this. But we both did it.
That was our first date.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a great story.
Soon after, I joined Nancy Griffith's band too. So we were on the road together, and that was actually it was about a year later, in '93, for a couple of months. And as soon as that tour ended, we got a record deal, our first one, and recorded all the songs that we had written on the road with Nancy. When it was time to do our second record, we were on the road quite a bit, and we thought, let's record a whole album on the road. Back then, it was kind of rare to have mobile recording stuff, but we had a mobile unit. And so we traveled all over America on our tour, supporting the River of Fallen Stars album, our first album. But we would stop here and there and record some of our friends with us. So some of those folks who were at that pickin' party a year earlier, like Kelly Willis and Monty Warden and Michael Fracasso, we got those guys to play and sing on the Life is Large album. So there are a whole lot of guests that sing on the record, and it's like an audio postcard for us of that tour.
That's so cool. So this album is actually the follow-up to the
Yeah, this was our second album.
Second album.
And it was all recorded on the road.
On the road. That's great.
Back in
So awesome.
95.
Yeah, so this album, Life is Large, came out in 1996. And for those of you who are new to the Back Catalog Listening Party, when we invite artists to be our guests, they get to choose the record. So this was the Kennedys' pick, but I was pretty excited because I love this record. And it has never quite left rotation ever since I first got it, which was probably not long after it came out. So I'm excited to revisit these songs with you guys and learn more about the recording. The first track that you picked to feature from the record is the title track. Is there anything you want to say about the tune before we take a listen?
Well, this is a song that we, when we wrote it on Skyline Drive, I think, in the...
Yeah, we went up to a lodge in the Shenandoah National Park to work on songs for the album. And Maura, we had actually hiked up a mountain and back down, and Maura said, I got this, I've been thinking of this song while we were hiking. And maybe Life is Large came about because we were on a mountain. I don't know, but we recorded the song, the basic tracks, and you have the option of adding some stuff. And I actually have my 12-string here. For the solo part in the middle, I had played this little Bach tune called Jesu Joy Mansus Ihrig. And it sounded fine, but we got this crazy idea because other people were joining in on the album, and we thought, we don't actually know Roger McGuinn, and he has no idea who we are, but he did play that solo on a B side of a Bird single. She Don't Care About Time was the song, and he played Jesu Joy Mansus Ihrig. So we got this crazy idea to get in touch with him and ask him to play on our song.
Ah, there he is.
And, well, there's the proof that he actually did.
That's so
That's
cool.
me worshiping there.
Maura's actually kneeling down.
I was listening to all of his stories and everything. We found out that he agreed to do it when we were actually on the road in Montana. We stopped at a phone booth to check our voice. Remember, you had to do that, call your number.
Yeah, put a little code in.
And his wife, Camilla, who's also his manager, called us back and said, Roger really loves it, but you're going to have to come to Florida. So we drove diagonally across America, straight down.
Montana, straight to Florida.
and had the joy of recording with Roger McGuinn for this song.
Oh,
wow. That is amazing. Well, thanks for sharing that story. We get to give it a listen here. Yeah. This is the Kennedys with Life is Large here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
He never went very far. Be yourself and stand your ground. Don't you let nobody turn you around. Life is large. Only got one chance to walk this line. If you should get lost or stuck in time, just believe this road does not end here. How do you want to be remembered? A raging fire or a dying ember? Life is large, bigger than the both of us. Life is large, all you need is just a little trust. Be yourself and stand your ground. Don't you let nobody turn you around. Life is large. 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 Life is large.
All right, the Kennedys.
I should mention too that those background vocals are Susan Cowsill and John Gorka,
Oh,
and
nice.
Peter Holtzapfel, too.
and Peter's on there too. Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, John Gorka was on one of our earlier episodes here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. And yeah, star-studded cast on that. And Roger McGuinn's guitar playing.
Oh, it's like heaven, right?
So good.
You know how you can isolate tracks? When I was mixing that song, I put on the record of Mr. Tambourine Man. You know that intro that Roger plays in there?
Yeah.
I put that on a loop on one fader that I had turned all the way down. And as I was working on his track for Life is Large, I A-B'd it with that other fader because I wanted to get the exact sound of that intro.
You got it.
It's the ultimate Rickenbacker 12-string
Yeah.
sound.
You
He was
nailed
a
it.
great guy, too.
That's so cool. And again, if you just joined us here on the Back Catalog Listening Party, we are talking with the Kennedys about their 1996 release, Life is Large. We're listening to the tracks in real time with you. An old-fashioned listening party on this new-fashioned YouTube platform. And feel free to throw questions in. And this is a good one from Joanne. She wants
Yeah.
to know who the drummer is on Life is Large.
Yeah.
That's the amazing Vinnie Santoro.
So great. I was just focusing on the bass and drums.
Yeah.
The things that I didn't play.
Right.
That the other people played. They were so fantastic.
Wade Matthews was the bass player
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vinny's played on a bunch of our records on various songs. He's such a great player. He played on Free, our song Free on the Evolver album, and he's collaborated with us quite a bit.
Yeah.
In fact, he's going to be on our next record too.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
And
Santoro.
And you mentioned that you recorded a lot of these tracks while you were on the road. Were you able to have any sort of core band, or does each track kind of have a different sort of personnel?
Well, this is our core band.
Pete and Maura.
I would say maybe about half of the songs have bass and drums by Vince Santoro and Wade Matthews. And if you look at the liner notes, I have the original liner notes. This album was actually re-released on a label called Varese Saraband later on, but the original release had this poster in it on one side.
I have that poster, by the way.
Yeah, that's
So
a
great.
rarity. And the liner notes here. And but the tracks that Vinny and Wade didn't play on, the drums were what was it? Stumpy Joe Jr. And
Usually when we write the song, we'll do a demo version that's us playing kind of all the instruments and singing all the parts. But that kind of evolves. Instead of totally re-recording the song, we end up keeping the core of that. The rhythm guitars really kind of have, Paul McCartney said that, the acoustic guitar can carry the vibe and the arrangement of a whole song. So we get those down first, and then we'll do, like if I played drums, we'll get Vinny to come in and totally replace that. We'll get, and I had played that little Yezu thing, but of course we erased that when we had Roger McGuinn. So we kind of, in our studio, will put the record together in a sketch form. And then other stuff, as we travel around the country, we'll get out to LA or Austin or Nashville or New York, and we'll say, let's get so-and-so on here. And then we already have this little, the sketchbook of the album with us, and that'll grow into the final thing.
But some of the sketchbook remains, and the tracks that did remain that weren't replaced, the bass and drums, we didn't want to say at the time, oh, they're Pete's tracks. So we gave him fake names. So yes, Stumpy Joe Jr. is the drummer, and we got that name from Spinal Tap. Remember Stumpy Joe?
Yeah.
He's the drummer that combusted. And then the bass player we called Stu Vorman. But that's all Pete. That's the secret that's never been revealed before. Now it's an exclusive here.
Back catalog exclusive. We love
Yeah,
that. Well, now this is the '90s, and again, digital recording was probably just starting out. I'm just curious from a technical perspective how you got all this stuff lined up if you're just kind of going from town to town and sending or going places and then putting it together in the studio.
We had a DA-88 machine. It was about that big, about the size of a microwave. And it had its own kind of tape that you can't play in any other machine, and it's all obsolete now. But it's an eight tracks, not an 8-track. But
Right.
it'll put 8 tracks down. And so we just packed that in the car with a couple of mics and a little amplifier, and that's really all we needed. We didn't really worry too much about sound isolation or, you go into a studio and there's foam, eggshell stuff all
Sure.
over the wall. We didn't care about that. We just wanted to get people on microphone. And I realized after that experience that a lot of that soundproofing stuff doesn't really matter if you're going for, feel and just an inspired performance. And so we achieved that, and so did all of our friends who joined us on the record.
Sometimes it's better not to be too technically perfect. Just go, the feel is what the listeners are going to respond to.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to go, I wonder if they had foam padding on the wall when they record. No one's ever wondered about that.
Well, and did they play along then to your basic tracks, or did you have like a click track going or something? Like, I guess for me, like you wouldn't be able to tell that wasn't played live in a room. I mean, the
Right.
groove, everybody was locked in.
Yeah.
And so is it just everybody playing to your original
Yeah.
rhythm tracks?
That's what it was. So
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I think that's what really great session players do is exactly what you said, Tony. It you would never know it wasn't everybody playing all at the same time.
Well, and also it's so great because that track, "Life Is Large," it sounds like a big studio
yeah.
song. It just sounds so good. I mean, we're listening on these headphones, and if you have, depending on all of you out there listening, you might be listening on your phone or through the YouTubes. It might not sound it's going to sound great. You're going to feel that energy and the musicianship for sure. But I will say, if you get a chance, if you don't already own the high-res files or a CD copy of this record, highly recommended because it sounds awesome, and you can.
second that.
They still have CD copies. I don't know
Yes,
if they
we
have
do.
I don't know if they have the poster anymore. That you might have to go on eBay.
No,
for.
you could. The copies we have are the old version, so it's got the original.
Poster.
Yeah,
So
we
you can
have
get
some
the
of those.
poster.
So you can
By
get
the way,
from the
collector's
Kennedys,
edition.
you can get the poster version and support their music more directly by going to kennedysmusic.com.
By the way, I just would like to say that I save everything. And so today I am dressed in my Life is Large outfit,
Oh my gosh!
From
Look
the
at
album.
that.
That's amazing.
Look at that!
right down to the striped tights.
Oh my
There they are.
goodness, that's amazing! Yeah, there
There
it is.
See?
Oh my gosh!
Wow. That is incredible.
And so, did you actually have matching guitars? I know they're not the same exact guitar, but
I've got the same exact guitar that I'm holding.
wow.
And the red Telecaster is around somewhere.
That's back in the
But
studio
yeah,
there.
we still have those guitars too.
Yeah.
And are those the guitars that you played most of the tracks on this record with, or were they just the prettiest guitars?
They were the prettiest. I mean, we definitely played them, but we play all. You know, we've got acoustic guitars and 12 strings and all different kinds of guitars. Sort of like a painter has a palette. So we choose the right guitars for each track.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think that Rickenbacker 12 string, the one I'm holding, it's kind of a trademark for us because, you know, the Byrds and the Beatles, those were the two Rickenbacker 12 string bands, and our music definitely relates back to them. Not in a nostalgic way, it's because they were timeless. So it's not really looking backward even to still be digging their music.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Chris had a question more getting back to the recording. He was asking if you whether you recorded at like live at the shows that you were doing while you were recording this album, or were you just doing this stuff with your 8-track?
Did you record live shows at the?
So I think he's wondering if you recorded like the actual performances or whether you were just doing them as separate demos.
I think we did them as separate
Demos. Yeah.
It was so early in the whole process. We even did interviews for like audio magazines and recording magazines about they recorded an album without going into a studio. You know, it was like a big deal. And now you can do like 24 tracks on your cell phone. You know, and it will sound like what we just heard. But back then, like it was thought that when you were going to record, you booked time at a recording studio, and on those particular days you had to do your ultimate absolute greatest singing and playing because you couldn't afford to go back and do it again. And we felt liberated from that because we could keep working on things the way if you're a painter you don't get one chance to paint the painting and then it goes out to the public. You can work on it for a while, and so that's the way we were able to do so many albums on our own.
Jeff is talking about the ADAT machine. That was like the ADAT to the DA88 was like VHS to Beta.
They're kind of competitors.
Yeah.
I think more people use the ADAT, but it broke more often.
Yeah. In fact,
they both broke a lot.
We had gone to Steve Forbert's studio in Alabama to record, and he was recording an album on ADAT, and I think he lost some of them. He found them later, but yeah, ADATs were breakable, I think.
Yeah, it was digital recording, but it was on tape. Mm-hmm. So they would still have the physical liabilities of tape recording. The tape could break.
Yeah. Well, this is so great. If you just tuned into the Back Catalog Listening Party, we're being joined by the Kennedys from New York, revisiting their 1996 record, Life is Large. And if you have any comments, questions as we go, feel free to throw them in the chat. And people are loving the music, and I think we need to hear more of it. So,
yeah.
All right.
The next track you picked to feature is One Heart, One Soul. Is there anything you want to say about it?
Yeah, so when we did this album, and we got different guests to be on the record, we called all of our friends. So on this track, we had Peter Holsapple, Susan Cowsill, they were on the last one, Jimmy LaFave, who is gone now, Michael Fracasso, Nils Lofgren plays an incredible lead guitar on this. There were people that we had just met, though, that summer. We played at the Philadelphia Folk Festival, and we got to hear the Dixie Hummingbirds sing, and we were big fans of theirs anyways. And so we asked, would you be willing to drive to D.C.? We were living in D.C. at the time. And sing on the record, and they did. And one thing I was looking for, and I didn't find it, and I'm going to have to keep looking, is a cassette that they made us. And they gave it to us after the recording session. They said, we thought you might like this. It's us singing the song by ourselves a cappella. So that's something I'll have to dig out. But they lent their beautiful gospel voices to this song, One Heart, One Soul.
I think at the Philadelphia Folk Festival, they said, if you ever want us to sing on a record of yours, give us a call. And they didn't think we would do that. But we did.
Of course we did.
We said, come on, guys. And they were the great guys, great singers, and they have amazing history, the Dixie Hummingbirds.
All right, well, let's give it a listen. This is the Kennedys, One Heart, One Soul here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Two lovers, two friends. stand against a fire of change when it's one heart, one soul, one heart, one soul, one heart, one soul, one heart, one soul. Hush, little baby, don't you cry. Woman whispers as the rockets go by. There are no countries, only hearts, and even armies couldn't tear us apart. When we're one heart, one soul, one heart, one soul. One heart, one soul, one heart, one soul. Don't wait around for someone else to show it. You may be the very first to know it. Ocean to ocean, shore to shore, across all borders, beyond all walls. Never forsaken, never alone. We'll bring these walls down stone by stone. 'Cause we're one heart, one soul, one heart, one soul. One heart, one soul, one heart, one soul. One heart, one soul, one heart, one soul. One heart, one soul, one heart, one soul.
What a great
Man.
ending.
And
Man.
that's Nils Lofgren on that lead guitar, and you can hear the Dixie Hummingbirds with the ooh.
Yeah.
But that lead guitar, you know, you don't want to fade it out ever, and but you find the point when he's just wailing at the high point of the high range of the guitar, just like slowly fade it out.
That's
there.
a trick on fade outs. You know, when you're mixing a record, you want it to sound like it's just hitting the peak as it disappears, because then
Right.
it keeps the energy up
Yeah.
the whole way, even though it's getting quieter. The energy's getting more intense as the record gets quieter.
Fun fact too, Nils Lofgren also played the accordion on our track St. Mark's Square, which we're not going to go through today, but he's an amazing, multi-talented musician.
Well, speaking of the personnel on that song we just enjoyed, again, that was One Heart, One Soul from the Kennedys' 1996 album Life is Large, which we are revisiting today on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Someone, I think it was Joanne, commented, she's like, and I had a note written down. I was like, organ? Like, who's playing the organ? And then Joanne said, I have my CD copy, and it's Pete playing the organ.
Yeah.
So, so kudos. It sounded amazing.
I think there's a sound that you hear with on the band albums, but the band, and also on Highway 61 Revisited, the Dylan album. There's piano and organ, And that comes from gospel. That was like on Mahalia Jackson records, which were done in the same studio as Like a Rolling Stone. There would be piano and organ, and it's this huge full sounds. In the band, you had Richard Manuel and Garth Hudson playing at the same time. So we were definitely kind of
Trying to get
referring to that kind of. It's like a secular gospel or something. It's not religious, but it's got that gospel vibe. And of course, we had the Dixie Hummingbirds too.
Yeah.
Can't get much more gospel than that.
Yeah, and a couple people also commenting, Maura, on your vocals. John and Terry just talking about how that song really showcases your voice as well, and sort of the sweetness and the soulfulness of your voice. So,
Well, thank you. I had to sing at my absolute best if we were going to get the Dixie Hummingbirds on, so the pressure was on me.
Their sound is when they come in after that bridge, and it's whoa. I mean, they have these huge voices, and it just wow. It's great to write a song, and then by the time you're finished recording it, it sounds the way you first heard it in your head. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's a great feeling.
yeah. And did you feel like most of the songs on this record were kind of how you hoped they'd be, or did you have any sort of surprises?
I
I think we really, honestly, we mixed this album like 20 times.
we did.
We would get it all mixed, and we'd listen, and we'd go, no, we didn't quite, no, we got it. It could be better. And so we worked on it for really long. We had so much confidence in the songs and in the contributions that everybody had made that we just kept going, working on it.
That's
So it was
amazing.
What we're hearing today, it sounds
So-
fantastic.
It sounds like you didn't have any other than extra producer, mixer, or person
Oh,
like
no.
that. It was all you.
Pete. Well, no, we
the-
should mention Bias.
We mixed it at Bias Recorders in Springfield, Virginia, which is this fantastic studio. And they had the big board, the big 24-channel API board. And so the final mix was done there. And so I was able to sit there and kind of illustrate what we were hoping to hear. And they're fantastic engineers over there. So the recording was all us, and then the mixing we had
Bob
a
Dawson.
real engineer do that.
That was Bob Dawson. He's got magic ears.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. This is the second time I've heard you said talking about illustrating the album, and earlier you were talking about it as a sketchbook, which a couple of people commented on. So, like, is that kind of how you see your songs, as sort of like old paintings?
Yeah, I mean, I like I mentioned, the guitars are like a painter's palette. You're painting in colors, and when you mix, that's what you're trying to get. You're trying to get the whole spectrum, but not saturate everything. You just need the right. It's like either painting or cooking. Just trying to get that right. And you might have a mix that's almost there, but you hear one thing that's bugging you, and so we really do spend a lot. I think we spend more time on mixes than we do on the actual recordings.
There's a thing called synesthesia, which is associating. Sounds like a mental disorder, and maybe it is, but you associate colors with sounds, and so that's kind of part of mixing. You're thinking to yourself, it's a little too gray there, it needs more red, and somehow that translates into the music.
Oddly enough, that's come up multiple times actually on the show,
Oh,
where people
wow.
will
Other
say they're in
people
the
say-
studio and they said, "Hey Jimmy, I just need a little more purple on that upright
Yeah.
bass," and he knew what I meant. So I think that's a
Right.
really
Yeah.
interesting idea, and yeah, there's more to it I think than we can process.
There's some
in our-
correlation with the frequencies of tone, musical tone, and the visual frequencies of color. And I don't think we understand it, but we experience it.
Yeah, for sure. And Yeah, this is amazing. So if you are enjoying the paintings, all the palette that you're hearing, or you want to dig in more into the nuance of those layers of sound, again, highly recommend getting a copy of this CD with the poster, the original
Yeah.
poster. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and this is the only place you can get it now, right?
That's
The
right. It's not.
original-
Yeah.
There are no
We've
stores,
got
so
the
it's
ones
not
that are
there
left.
anymore.
We've got.
Excellent. So you can get it from the Kennedy's website. You can also check out their tour dates. And it's funny, a bunch of people on the chat were talking about, oh, I'm looking forward to see you at Stony Brook or in Portland and all these different places. So if you want to check out their tour dates, you might want to do that at kennedysmusic.com. And it looks like Pete, we got a comment from Bob saying, Pete, when I was little and visited my grandmother on the Eastern Shore of Virginia, I got taken to her Baptist church and they did the piano organ combination. Only time I heard that prior to the band. So yes, definitely coming from the churches for sure. And definitely very soulful. Well, the next track that you guys picked to feature on today's show is Blackberry Rain. I know. So we were talking about the song. You had picked out the songs in advance of today's show. And then, sometimes we don't have time for all the tracks that are picked. So we were like, if you have to leave one off, which one would be? And Maura was like, not Blackberry Rain. So Maura is very excited about sharing this. And I would love to know why.
Okay,
so the fact it's a great song. But.
So as Pete mentioned earlier, we went up to the Blue Ridge Mountains. We got a cabin for about 3 or 4 days to write songs for this album. We thought it'd be good to just get away and focus. And we wrote a bunch of songs, and one night it was really late at night. But I should preface it by saying that the cabin we were in was a duplex cabin. And it was great because it was very isolated, but every morning at about 7 o'clock in the morning, we could hear our neighbor. It was a woman there all by herself, but she was an opera singer. And she would go out on her porch and just sing this gorgeous soprano opera music to the mountains. And we never, we were so quiet because we were just listening. It was beautiful. It was magical. Well, one night, late at night, we had this idea to write a psychedelic Beatley kind of song called Blackberry Rain. And we were writing down the words. You'll hear it, And it's just, we put in as much of that stuff as we could. And with every line we wrote, we were giggling. We thought it was such a funny song. And we thought we were really nailing the whole psychedelic thing. And I said to Pete, it's probably 1 a.m, we got to get this down on our recorder. We had one of those, Twin Peaks recorders. But we wanted to be quiet because we knew that our opera lady got up early. So we're singing like in little chipmunk voices. Old moon in a new moon's arms. Love is in the air. And we're singing like this. We got just through the end of the song and we heard from our neighbor.
And we have that on the tape.
We've got that on tape somewhere.
The song ends with this banging on the wall.
So she didn't like our music as much as we enjoyed hers, but I will never forget that. That's Blackberry Rain.
That's awesome. And I agree with Joni here. These stories are golden. All right, let's give it a listen. This is Blackberry Rain from the Kennedys here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
I love the phaser on the
I
vocal.
was waiting to see if I could hear the knock, but
No, we didn't put it on this.
On that one, Maura did the vocal arrangement, and I played the bass and drums. I did all the music because we were not going to ask the session musician, these like professional guys to play that stuff. We were too embarrassed.
Well, I will say we definitely channeled John Lennon and also Sam Phillips on this. I was really that Sam Martinis and Bikinis album when we did this, and we were channeling all that stuff. I like the
so much
phaser
fun.
on the vocals.
And those really biting treble guitars. It's like a late Beatles
I
kind
like
of
the
thing.
little man with the crooked nose in a circus clown.
Yeah, we tried to put in every psychedelic image that you could come up with.
I love that.
You
It
nailed
was
that,
so much
that
fun.
McCartney bass too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Boom,
Great.
boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Like Dear Prudence kind of thing.
exactly. And Martin says, I'd love to see a Yellow Submarine type animation accompany this song.
Oh, that's a great
Would be
idea.
cool.
All right, and
'Cause
all you animators out there,
Yeah.
go to it.
Yeah, because pretty much every line is a visual. It's like picture yourself on a boat on a that song is also every line is a visual image, and so we used that technique of every line being something you would see in your dream, so to speak. And so yeah, it would be a great animation.
Well, this is so great to hear these tunes, but also your influences. And one of the things that you've mentioned a whole bunch that you can clearly hear in the music. You mentioned obviously the Beatles, the Byrds, the band, Dylan, Mahalia Jackson. So kind of a wide palette of music that you all have been influenced by and were influenced by when you were making this record. I'd love to know, what are you listening to these days that you're finding inspiring? Or is it the same?
Well, we're going out to see the Jayhawks tonight. I mean,
Hey,
Hey, Minneapolis!
yeah, yeah, all right. We still go to record stores, and a lot of what we find is old stuff. And obscure stuff that never came out on CD. We just picked up a Tomita record. You know him? It's all electronic music that's he transcribes classical pieces, but it's at the birth of electronic music, stuff like that. And gosh,
In terms of production, and I've produced a lot of other singer-songwriters too. Aside from the things that Maura and I produce for ourselves, I find it a lot more useful to listen to classical music, like starting with Debussy, and especially around that period, that was George Martin's background. And he wasn't a rock and roller, but he was able to bring something totally different to the Beatles, and that's a large part of what made them so unique as they went along. And so I try to emulate that. I listen to like impressionist music because it's got different chords that you don't hear in rock and roll. And then when you're producing a record, you think, what can we do to make this really sound unique? And then you think, oh yeah, Debussy or Ravel did this lick. And then you do that. So I don't think listening... We have lots of friends who are other singer-songwriters, but if we studied their records, we would sound like we're imitating them. So we try, and I think the next song we're going to play is an example of what we're talking about. It's this Americana genre was a new thing, and it's great to be in a new genre because there's no rules you have to follow. And I remember with this song, we were thinking, we're going to push this as far as we can. Not in a weird experimental way, but in bringing in different types of world music.
are we doing that one, or are we doing the one that we? Do we have time for one or two?
I was gonna say, I'm not sure which tune you're talking about, but I think we have time for one more.
All right.
But for anyone who wants to hear the other one, we're gonna talk about the other one for our Patreon after party. And actually, this is a good time to thank our Patreon supporters. So this show was started in March of 2020, when we missed all of our musician friends, and Tony said, maybe we could invite them on to talk about their old records, since we all have old records sitting in our basements. And so we started it as a pandemic pastime, and now it's grown into what it is today. And this is all because of these folks who said, yes, we want this to happen, even though people are going out to play live shows. Penny, Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, and John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead, Pick and Parlor, Severin, Lynn, Mary, Many Tracks, Nikki, Joni, David, Sarah C., and maybe you. If you want to support this show and get invited to special after parties, today the Kennedys are going to stick around for a private Zoom after party, and we can send you a link if you want to join that Patreon community, and we'll get a bonus song with them. But otherwise, you know what? Joni's one of our Patreon supporters. Thank you, Joni.
Yay, Joni.
Thanks,
And but I should also mention that, of course, you can buy the Kennedy's record, and then you can listen to all these songs as much as you want. But so the next song we're going to listen to is Sirens. Is there anything you want to say about this? This is kind of unusual tune.
What Pete was saying, but also when we were on the road with this one, we were down in Nashville, and we had met Steve Earle a few times. And we decided, we thought, let's call him up. And at that time, people were wanting to get him on singing and stuff. And we thought, if we ask him to sing, maybe he won't want to do it. But he plays that what he called heavy metal mandolin. So we thought, why don't we ask him to play heavy metal mandolin? And there he is. That's at Ray Kennedy's studio, no relation, in Nashville. And Steve came in and played his mandolin. And then when we went down to Austin, we asked Charlie Sexton to play. Charlie, we lived in Austin for a while, and Charlie came in and he played two instruments, a bouzouki, and I think it's a Turkish instrument called a gumbush. And so that was cool. It kind of lent that world music vibe to the whole thing.
Yeah, and also Stars Vanderlock, percussionist, came in, and so we tried to get sort of a different sounds from around the eastern part of the Mediterranean. This is going to sound pretentious, but like I said, Americana was so new, you could try anything. And we thought, let's write a song from the point of view of Odysseus. So it's like the Odyssey as a folk rock song.
Using instruments of that region.
And so it's Odysseus talking about, or it's sort of like a goddess talking to Odysseus or something like that. You know, it's got this kind of mythical atmosphere, but we have these roots musicians playing on it. And through the magic of mixing, Steve and Charlie have a little verbal exchange.
Fantastic. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, keep going. If you had something else to say about it, we'd love to hear it.
Well, I was just going to say, we just had so much fun doing it because, once again, we weren't trying to sound like
anybody but ourselves,
you know, and you think those are like the weird things no one will like, and those are usually the things people like the most.
All right, let's give it a listen. This is the Kennedys' Sirens here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
I switched over to my fingers. That was feeling better.
That was my Maniac track.
Rolling a wish between your fingers. Haven't you heard the sound before? Isn't the song that rings like morning? Oh,
Yeah, you guys have mastered that fade out. That was perfect.
Yeah,
That
it
was
was.
so good.
I should mention a couple things that I was really into at the time when we recorded that. Two things. There was a Sheila Chandra album called Weaving Our Ancestors' Voices that was, and still is, it's just a beautiful, just stunning vocal album. Very different from anything that I had ever heard before. And so all that little vocalese stuff, that Eastern kind of sounding vocalese stuff, was highly influenced by that. And also, towards the end, sailor beware of the siren's tune. And then you hear, ah, ah, hoo. That's from Debussy's La Mer. So I threw that in there too. I'm very much into Debussy. In fact, when we first met, I went to see Pete play, and he was at the Continental with the band one night, and then at the Chicago House the next night playing solo acoustic. And he played a Debussy piece called "Girl with the Flaxen Hair." Didn't announce it, but I knew what it was because I'm a huge Debussy fan. So we connected on that level, and it just seemed to fit, especially with the whole Odysseus thing. So.
Because in Texas, you always play a Debussy piece for your encore. And
It impressed me, so
I was going to say it worked. Yeah.
and a couple other geeky things. The verses are in what, for the music freaks, they're in the Mixolydian mode, not the regular major scale, and the solos are in the Phrygian. Which is like the Spanish or North African kind of mode too. So we deliberately did that to set it apart from country rock while still sounding kind of country rock too. And also one more thing, there's an ambient track. It sounds like it's synthesizers and stuff that keeps going after the song fades out. What I did there was I tuned a Stratocaster to not to a chord, just to kind of, not random notes, but some notes that would be sort of evocative. And then I had the engineer turn the track down, but I could see from the counter where it started and where it ended. And during that time, I had distortion on the Stratocaster, and I banged on the neck and did the whammy bar up and down. And when it got to the end, then I listened to it played back, so I was not hearing the song when I did that, because I wanted these random notes to happen without me trying to play in a linear way. So I think that adds that kind of, it's supposed to be Odysseus out in the ocean, not quite knowing where he's going, and I thought that ambient random kind of feedback track added to that.
Oh yeah, it
so
has that
cool.
dissonance. Yeah.
Yeah,
distance.
I love the way your brain works, and thank you so much for sharing it. Those are the nuggets that you just don't get to find anymore without liner notes, or so we really, really appreciate you sharing that stuff with us.
I want to mention too that we too have been doing the streaming thing since March of 2020. But at the same time, we have been writing, and our next album, finally, we're going to have a new album of all new original material coming out August 25th. It's going to be called Headwinds, and we'll have some information there on kennedysmusic.com. Also, I want to show, I dug this out of the archive too. This is sheet music for Life is Large.
Look at that.
Oh,
Do you
amazing.
still have copies of that?
Yeah, I have a few copies. It's got the song "Life Is Large," and it's also got St. Mark's Square, which is on the album. And that was put out when we were published by Cherry Lane Music. They put this folio out.
It's got the guitar chords too. Right?
Yeah,
the
that's
lyrics, the piano part, and the guitar chords.
The whole
Is
thing.
that
It's
the
all
tuning
very
of your
professional.
Stratocaster? From that last
I don't remember what that is either myself.
And I know it's 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 Central, but I just want to say Mother Banjo and we go way, way back. We've known you for probably all of these 27 years.
Yeah.
Probably.
So it's
Some
great
capacity.
in fact, we even did a little pop-up folk festival, we called it, several years ago.
At the
when we-
Dakota. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really fun. We were supposed to do a gig, and part of it fell through, and we we thought, well, we're here. Let's gather some of our friends. And Mother Banjo came out, and I was very thrilled because Joey Molan came out too.
Yeah.
And some local, great local musicians, and we had such a great time. So
That's so great.
the thread continues.
It's a great music town.
It is a great
yeah.
Minneapolis
Agreed.
town. And, Little Birdie said you might be coming through here when you support that record in the fall. So we'll make sure to let some of our local people know. But again, if you want to know where they're playing, kennedysmusic.com. And also their live stream Sunday, May 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. You can find all the details on their website. Again, they've mastered the live stream thing. So if you, and also I know a bunch of the folks here have said they're regulars there. So if you want that community feel with other Kennedy's fans, you can check that out if you haven't already. Also, for our back catalog fans, and it looks like we got some new ones today.
Yay.
Then you can join us every Friday at 4 p.m. Central, so 5 p.m. Eastern, and I can't do the math right now at this point of the hour to tell you what it is in Sweden and the UK, but it's late.
I think it's 10.
Yeah, that sounds right.
In the UK.
So
UK.
I will say that we do this every Friday, not with the Kennedys, unfortunately, but every week a different set of musicians revisiting old records. And if you like the episode, like it on YouTube, direct more bots to the Kennedys. Also, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and find out, get notified when our next guest is announced. And I can say that our Patreon folks get the first look at what's coming up, and we have some really good ones coming up. So backcataloglisteningparty.com. We archive all of our shows. So in addition to watching this same YouTube link and sharing it with your friends, if you want some of those photos, you want links to some of these other projects, you can see the full show notes at our website, Back Catalog Listening Party, and listen to all of our past episodes. But right now it's time we have to get to our Patreon after party. And I do want to thank CJ, who just came on board as a patron during the broadcast.
Great.
So
Welcome.
CJ will be joining
Thank
us
you.
as well over on Zoom in just a few minutes. But thank you all for tuning in. We couldn't do this without the artists who agreed to say yes to listen to their old records.
Yeah.
So thank you, Pete and Maura, and also to all of you for joining us, because this is what it's all about: hanging out with friends and listening to great music.
Yeah, and I feel like the Kennedys crowd and our crowd are kindred spirits. I
Yeah,
mean, just
definitely.
seeing everybody talking to each other in the chat, that's as much fun to see as the stuff between us. So we really do appreciate it. And both Ellen and I believe in the power of music and how it can bring people together. And we just are so appreciative of the Kennedys for joining us today. Thank you guys again for being here, and everybody else. And we hope to see you next week here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Until then, have a great weekend.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone. Cheers. Yay.